I call Chris Ockenvall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I commend this bill to the House. We should pass it.
I call Andrew Little.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to take a call on the Land Transport Management Amendment Bill and begin by expressing my considerable disappointment in the last member who spoke, a member who has attracted, who in the past has attracted my admiration and indeed on occasions respect for his worthy contributions to this House. But that, frankly, Mr. Speaker, is an embarrassment. But it's more than an embarrassment because it demonstrates the ongoing contempt and disrespect with which this House is held by members of this government. To stand up in the third reading of this bill, an important bill that makes radical changes to the administration of land transport policy in this country, with a cursory, barely two-sentence submission by that member, is frankly a disgrace. And Mr. Ockenvall knows better. Mr. Ockenvall knows better, as indeed do the leaders of his party in this House tonight. And so it is incumbent, of course, on the opposition to take the debate on these important points. So this bill makes considerable change to the administration of the land transport policy in this country. It changes, amongst other things, the purpose of the legislation and therefore of the New Zealand Transport Agency. And what has up to now been an agency that has been driven by a sense of a comprehensive approach to land transport, an integrated approach to land transport, it now minimises, it reduces it in the reductionist sort of approach that this government favours to a much narrower set of parameters and drivers. It replaces what is a comprehensive and integrated approach to transport to one focus almost entirely on efficiency, whatever that means. And so it changes our approach to road planning. It introduces scope for more tolling and therefore the privatisation of more roading over and above the approach that typically until now has been taken, which is to regard roading as in a long, narrow country like New Zealand has been integral to our total transport networks. But this bill will replace that. And you know, the irony of that is, of course, is that only weeks ago, Mr. Speaker, only weeks ago, we had rammed through this House, rushed through in a great urgency, legislation that will increase excise duties on petrol 3 cents a year for the next 3 years on the basis that it was needed for transport funding. But indeed what this bill does is gives greater scope for toll roads and the privatisation of roading. So we cannot even get consistency in the approach that this government adopts. And we cannot get members opposite to defend this bill, to defend the approach taken in this legislation, so that we can better understand, and that members of the New Zealand public who are tuned in tonight, this cold, windy, haily night, when people got nothing better to do but to listen to Parliament, the citizens of New Zealand will be none the wiser from members of the government who choose not to defend this important and this critical piece of legislation. What a disappointment, Mr. Speaker. What a disappointment. But, sir, and I want to comment too on the other things, of course, this bill does. This government that purports to be the government of regional voice and local voice, this provides for and portends greater centralisation of roading decision-making that I know Mr. Ockenvall, now he realises the folly of his ways, alarmed at that. He had not understood that that was in the legislation, and he expresses in his facial expressions great alarm and horror at that prospect. I can see it. I can feel it from here. But sir, I would be remiss in my duties if I did not come to the House tonight to talk about State Highway 3 and North Taranaki, because that will be sorely affected by this legislation. Sorely affected, sir. And I want to talk about Taranaki, the region, my Tūranga Waiwai, the area that is dear to my heart, close to my mind right now. And sir, I want to say that in Taranaki, what we desperately need is a sense of coherence and cohesion in our roading planning. And this bill will not give it to us. This bill will not give it to us. What we also need to ensure, sir, in Taranaki and on State Highway 3 is that the local voice is heard, and this bill will deprive the people of Taranaki of that opportunity. You see, we need a good coherent plan for State Highway 3. That section north of New Plymouth, and not just the Waiwakaio Bridge and the 100-odd metres of that bridge and the stretch to Vickers Road, but the 100 kilometres through to the little village of Piopio, actually in the King Country, that goes from New Plymouth to Piopio there. And I also want to mention, sir, that little stretch of road just north of Harwood around Normanby Bridge, because that has been a big challenge for the people of Taranaki as well. Mr. Speaker, 57% of the Taranaki economic output is geared to export, whether through oil and gas or dairy or some of the engineering activities that are there. 50% of the Taranaki economy is geared to the export economy. That is twice the national figure. That is the significance of Taranaki and therefore the significance of the Taranaki infrastructure. We need roading that reflects the economic contribution that is made by the people of Taranaki. The province of Taranaki produces the highest GDP per employee in the country. The highest GDP per employee in the country. And Cam Calder, who once hailed from that great region, who made the mistake of settling way further north than that region, he knows. He's ashamed to be he's ashamed to be living in a region that is making a far less contribution per capita than the people of Taranaki. And sir, one of the consequences of having a region that contributes so much to the economic well-being of the country, that contributes so much to our GDP, whose employees contribute disproportionately greater than any other employee in the country, one of the things is that, of course, it demands a skilled international workforce. And they are travelling up and down the roads of New Zealand, and therefore in and out of Taranaki all the time. And of course, the product of Taranaki, not only the goods that come off our farms, but the products of our heavy engineering industry, demand good quality roads, and we don't have them. Here is what the local Economic Development Agency said about State Highway 3 only last year. They said, Venture Taranaki, the local Economic Development Agency, one of the best economic development agencies in the country, here is what they said on their report on State Highway 3 last year. But there are some roadblocks that are preventing the Taranaki economy from meeting its growth aspirations and thereby contributing to the national economy. Our region's roading network, particularly the central artery of State Highway 3, between Taranaki and the Waikato and then on to Auckland, is failing to fulfil its economic potential. And they went on to say, because they are intelligent people, they went on to say, Mr. Speaker, where considerable effort has been made to get central Auckland moving, insufficient attention has been yet given to reviewing the critical links connecting Auckland to the rest of New Zealand and thereby New Zealand to the world. And so that illustrates the problem for Taranaki, and the people of Taranaki will look at the Land Transport Amendment Bill 2013 and they will say there is nothing in this bill for us. There is nothing in this bill that will improve the prospects of State Highway 3 for us. This government is doing nothing for Taranaki. They talk big and large about Taranaki, about the contribution that it's making. But the reality about the national government running New Zealand in 2013 is that they could not give a toss about State Highway 3 and the infrastructure in Taranaki. They talk long and large about that region that contributes disproportionately to the great benefit of this country, but they will do nothing for the people of Taranaki to improving their roads. And so that is an issue that the people of Taranaki and New Plymouth are getting angry about and agitated about, and I am talking to them all the time, and they are going to see some action. They are going to see some action from the Labour Party, and when Labour leads the next government, we will see action on State Highway 3, on Mount Messenger, on the Awakino Gorge, and on all that stretch of road. That includes 65 kilometres of road heading north without a single passing lane. What person in this country travel 65 kilometres without a passing lane in this country. Only the people of Taranaki. And they've had enough and they want to change. This bill won't do it, and we will be, the West Coast has done it, and we will change this legislation to ensure the people of Taranaki have a better voice, a stronger voice, and soon they'll have a stronger MP representing them in this parliament.
Order. I call Dr. Kem. Called.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Improving our nation's